Mark. It's always an honor to hang out with you and spend this evening with you. And visit with you for dang sure. I really appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So weird. It's so fun though.
You know, with the turns, with those.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
There's no reason for any of those people to put themselves and their bodies through that irreversible damage.
I'm like, all right, I'm just along for the ride.
Everyone, please support Mark. I love what you're doing.
How did this get here?
The importance of telling a story about human connection, I think right now is one of the most radical acts that we can be doing.
Other than that, it's all good. We're just going to keep trying to make it.
Isn't it awesome when you can look back on something where the product and the experience were both great, so they all comes together and there's like nothing negative about it?
Yeah, totally. And it's not always the case. If one of them's good, then at least you've got something. At least one has to be good. It has to be fun or has to turn out good.
Yeah, and clearly you don't want it when neither of them work out that way.
You just take it off your resume, you pretend it never happened.
Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. I'm Mark Sugiyama from Eclectic Arts Media, based here in Seattle, Washington. And thank you so much for joining me on this Monday, the 21st of November, 2022. And I want to thank Mr. Mo Brings Plenty from the hit television show Yellowstone for joining me this past Friday, which was live stream event number 300, which started back on May 22nd, 2020. It's always such a pleasure talking with Mo, and me being a huge fan of the television show Yellowstone, withstanding, he's just a really fascinating person, a very spiritual person. And it's just always a pleasure. And sometimes I have to pinch myself that I'm actually talking to someone from a show that I watch religiously. And season 5 has been no exception in terms of the amount of quality that it has been showing. So that's been wonderful. And speaking of live streams, so today is number 301. And number 302 is scheduled for a week from today. So after the Thanksgiving weekend for those here in the US, on the 28th of November at 6 p.m. Pacific, same time as today's. I have Casey Hartnett joining me. And if you are a horror fan, then you know about the film Terrifier 2, which was just kind of going nuts last month. It was the budget was $250,000, and it got itself into mainstream movie theaters, and word of mouth started spreading, and it made over $12 million. There's a lot of headlines about people fainting and people getting sick and all this kind of stuff, which is for a horror movie is great. It's great press. So I'm really excited to have Casey come on. She has arguably one of the most gruesome death scenes in that film, and she's done a lot of other things as well. So I'm really looking forward to talking to her. Again, that's on the 28th of November, a week from today. And if this is your first time joining me on my YouTube channel, if you could do me a huge favor and hit that subscribe button and also the notification bell. And if you're on the Twitch side of things, if you could follow me over there. Anyone that's watching, I see that there are people watching right now. If you'd like to ask my guests a question for this live stream or any of the future ones, all you have to do is subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on Twitch, and you'll have access to the chat. I see all of the comments and questions, so I will ask my guests those things as they come through. My guest does not. That's something I changed probably about 4 or 5 months ago. So just be aware that if you're trying to say anything directly to them, I'm the one who sees it. They don't see it. So yeah, and also if you'd like to know more details about what I have coming up, I put everything on Instagram first. I'm Eclectic Arts Media, one word there, and then some of that information moves over to other social media platforms, which at this rate aren't a lot for the ones that I'm using. But that's where everything goes first. So when I have actual details, especially when some things happen pretty quickly, even like this particular live stream, that's where it's going to get posted first. And again, if you're following me on Twitch and if you're subscribed to my YouTube channel, you'll get a notification about what's coming up. So let's get to things. My guest today is a wonderful actor who first joined me last year for a one-on-one interview, as well as a fun table session, which was last year in September. She is starring in a new film called Exile, which will be making its world premiere at the Whistler Film Festival, which runs from November 30th through December 4th and online through January 2nd, 2023. It is my great pleasure to welcome back to the Eclectic Arts Media virtual studio, Miss Camille Sullivan.
Hi, thanks for
Hi.
having me back.
Yeah, Camille, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for taking the time. I really enjoyed talking with you the first time, and I think we had some fun during that fun table session.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can't wait to kind of talk about the new film in terms of what we can talk about, because I don't obviously want to spoil things, especially with it being a world premiere at the film festival. But maybe some generalities. How did you get involved with Exile?
Apparently the directors and producers had been talking to my agent for a while and sort of working things out, and then by the time I heard about it, it was a couple weeks out, and they offered it to me, and I read the script, and I thought it was a really exciting role and a really exciting premise, and I knew Adam Beach was already attached, and I thought that would be fantastic. And the director I'd never worked with before, Jason James, but I knew him a little, and he seemed like a very nice guy, and it just seemed like a really fun opportunity to go shoot a pretty intense two-hander.
Yeah, and having a chance to, so I have seen the film, and it's, yes, I'm trying not to say too much about it. What I can say is that your performance it really stands out, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you. And there's certain scenes, like I'm thinking of one which I could probably say without giving too much away, when your character's addressing Adam Beach's character, and you're playing husband and wife, about that you want him to explain how he made that choice before basically you walk out of the cabin. And that scene was like, from your side of it, was to me like really, really, like I was just like sucked into it.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me happy. That was a tough scene, and there was a lot to do in it and a lot of shifts, and I'm glad that you feel that it worked.
Yeah, absolutely, because it was like, it got really raw, and it felt like, you're, as a character, you're at your wit's end basically, and you want to know, even for like your own peace of mind, that he needs to explain himself so he understands he made a deliberate decision, and that's why things are going the way they're going, without giving things away.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, and there's and I think I'm thinking back to the interview that we did, that one thing that's also nice about this film is that you didn't have like that makeup on your face that makes you like you've been living in the woods for like a month or anything.
Yeah, I got to at least start out relatively normal and pretty looking, and then things go terribly wrong, of course.
Yeah, because I was thinking about this. Yeah, this is interesting that this is also taking place for the most part, in a forest or in a wooded area and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which was very pretty. But yeah, at least you got a chance to show a different side of your acting. Than
a little softer, a little more, but well, a little bit of both things. Like I think one of the things that's different is, though I'm from the city, and it's more modern, obviously, character, but then also a very I guess they both are driven and capable person. You know what I mean? Extremely capable of just, something needs to be done, just go do it.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that's what there's the scene also when your character finally finds him at the police station, and it's kind of like, and again, I'm not trying to give things away, no spoilers, but your character has to kind of go through a bunch of emotion during a really quick amount of time, at least in terms of how the edit went. And it's like, because you could have went all kinds of different directions. You've driven a long way to try to find him, and then something happens. And again, I won't ruin it, but it's just kind of like, wow, there's just so many things that have to happen so quickly.
It's such a, the relationship is so deep, and I won't give anything away either. But I think what's out there already is that we're married, and he's just gotten out of prison after 5 years for a DUI, and then disappeared, and I go find him. And there's just so many layers to that story. Like, I started to read about and to watch documentaries about partners of people who are sent to prison, because so much focus obviously is on the person who's incarcerated because they suffer the most, but they're the spouses or partners who are left behind with children and finances, and also judgment from society, and personal loss and all that stuff, and how overwhelming that can be. And so I was really trying to think of it that way too. Like, she has a desire to save him, but she also wants to save herself, to salvage her life that she had.
Yeah, and there's also children involved in this particular film, so that adds another dimension to that. If a spouse is incarcerated, how are you getting by? How are you dealing with all this stuff? And if you don't have family supports, in this case, your character has mom around, but if you don't, yeah, it becomes
You're
a
a single
nightmare.
parent, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and then you're just trying to grapple with the whole process of whatever happened that sent your partner to prison or what have you, and all these other things that come with it, and people's judgment of that, and that could also affect your kids at school, and just all kinds of things. That's interesting. Was there anything else that kind of stood out when you're doing that research for folks who are the partners who's on the outside when their partner's been incarcerated that kind of stood out to you?
What stood out to me is that the loss is so real, and when you think about it, you can see obviously so much life change, but you're still there, trying to be there for your partner, obviously, and there's very little seems to be resources for those people who are left behind. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of resources for people coming out of prison either. There could be a lot more all around. But I think, some kind of emotional support groups or something, I think if you would find yourself in that position, that would be a very helpful thing.
No, that's true. I used to work at a nonprofit that helped folks that when they basically just got out of prison or other situations get employment. And so a lot of times they would come in with their partner. And so you'd hear, and it wasn't with me directly, but I would hear the people in the cubicles over from me when they're doing intakes, and like you'd hear this whole story of like what happened and what the partner's going through, and then what are we going to do about so and so now that they're out here. And I don't want them to fall back into what led them to prison in the first place. And I would be listening to this stuff, and I'll be honest, I kept thinking, gosh, I wish there was something else that could be done for them beyond what our company was doing, but also that I'm glad that I'm staying on the straight and narrow. I mean, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think we could do, from my personal point of view, I think we could do a lot better than we do, both in the entire penal system and the way we've imagined it, and what we do for people when they get out. It's like often society makes it so people want to reintegrate, and we make it so difficult, almost impossible. And that's really a shame, because is it rehabilitation or is it punishment? If it's just punishment, what's the point?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I know some folks that have done some time, and every obstacle comes in their way when they come out, to the point where they're kind of like, why bother? Well, I might as well just go back to where I was.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and I think that speaks to the theme of the movie a little bit, both in the what actually happens, but then also in the idea of being exiled, because in that way too, when you've committed something that society, you've committed an illegal act, and then so you're exiled from society as well. It's like all your emotional support disappears at the same time.
Yeah, and I think, and I don't know if there was any intent behind this from the writer or even the director of the film, but I think for people that we all went through the pandemic, and there's a different type of exile. When you're on your own, it's kind of like, this is really bizarre after a while when you can't do what you normally would be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the timing of that too was very interesting. It's like, exactly, just coming out of the pandemic and having felt that kind of isolation, and what does that mean, and how important is connection to other people, and especially the people you're closest to. I think all that just plays in the movie in a really interesting way. I think there's like a lot to think about, and none of the choices that the characters make or what's revealed in the movie is black and white. I think there's a lot of gray nuance there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of things that people need to interpret whichever way they're going to interpret after they view the film. And that's part of what makes it fun, that it's not so black and white.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, what was it like working with Adam?
Oh, it was great. He's I think anyone who knows Adam will tell you he's such a nice guy. He's such a sweet guy. He's so friendly with everyone, treats everyone with respect, knows everybody's name. And he was very generous with me with his just encouragement and support, so that I felt very safe to do my part in what I had to do. And he was always rooting for me. That's usually the case with actors, but it's not always the case. But he was very much rooting for me, so it made it a great, him and with our director too, Jason James. It was just such an incredibly fun environment. and the work is so dark, but we had a lot of laughs, and like it was just really a creatively rich environment.
Well, that's great to hear, and especially since you and Adam are basically carrying this film, it's the two of you.
Yeah.
It wasn't like some other ensemble that can come in and kind of help, be a buffer.
No, it was good. I felt bad for him because he's, immobilized in a fashion for so much of the movie. That's really hard.
Yeah, I remember when the great late Jimmy Caan was talking about when he did Misery.
Oh, I just watched that the other day.
It is. It's so great, and talking about how he was going to have to be, bedridden for so many weeks doing those scenes, and they were he kind of remember he was like in an interview jokingly talking about, let's take the most hyper actor in the world and stick him in a bed for 6 weeks.
Yeah. That's so funny you bring that up. I just watched that. It's so great.
If I remember it, I think I saw that in the theater. That's how old I am.
I wasn't born, of course.
I just remember the scene, and we'll get back to the film and other things because I have other things I want to talk to you about. But I remember the scene when Annie discovers that her little penguin is facing the wrong direction, and that's what tips her off that he got out of the room.
Right. Yeah.
So when I first out of college, I used to be a teacher, which a lot of people know about. We went to my department head's house for I think it was like a lunch thing that were like a pseudo workshop deal. And she was very, very anal. I've been very anal about everything. And so she had a bunch of certain magnets on her fridge. I remember one of my coworkers said, "Mark, I'll give you $1 if you move one of those." And I was looking at that. I said, "What?" And I was like, so I moved one of them down where it shouldn't have been. And sure enough, we heard her department head probably like maybe an hour later. It's like, "Did someone touch my magnets?" And we all just started laughing. I had to pay him $1 and everything. And just that. But anytime I think about Misery in that scene, I think about my department head. That she was just like that. So, oh my gosh. But getting back to Exile, how long was the shoot for you? How long were you on set or location?
I think my memory honestly is a little foggy, but I want to say it's probably around 21 days, something like that.
Okay. And was that
quick.
shot? And where was that shot at?
In Powell River, which is a very beautiful part of BC. It's in a small town, very, very gorgeous, very lovely. Some of the backdrops are just incredible.
Yeah, it looked amazing as a location. Kind of place that you'd want to go spend some time and just kind of unwind, really.
It was really beautiful. Like standing in the woods, I was just like amazed. Like you just look around and anything you took a picture of was just stunning. But also our DP was very, very good. Sterling Bancroft, very, very good.
Okay. Well, and you kind of mentioned to me pre-show that you had just gone to like your first film event recently. So are you going to be going to Whistler for the festival to see this?
I am going to Whistler, which is my first film festival since all the business. So I'm excited.
Cool. Yeah, that would be great when you get to see, I assume most of the people of the creators involved with the film, and then you get to see it with an audience and, their reaction.
Yeah, it'll be great. Yeah, it'll be fun to see it with an audience. It's like, I think I used to feel more nervous, but now that I haven't had the opportunity to do it, I'm just excited. I really want people to see it and share that experience.
Cool. And have you seen the final cut of the film at all?
I have seen a cut of it, not the final cut.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw one, it wasn't completely finished. I mean, I thought it was great. The truth is for me, it's hard for me to watch myself, especially on the first go. It's like, I can't really take in the movie that well. So I waited. I watched it once and then I'm going to watch it again fresh in the theater and get the big screen experience. But I mean, I thought it was really good. It's just half the time I'm watching it, I'm like, oh, why did you do that? Why are you making that face?
So you're doing the typical artist thing where you're critiquing your work.
Yes. So that's why I try not to just watch. I try not to watch them too much. I'll watch it once. I'll watch it in the theater, and then I'll move on.
Okay. Well, That makes sense. And I know I talked with somebody else, and maybe it was actually during your interview for all I can't remember from what I did yesterday. But that there's definitely some in-person interviews I had done before the pandemic that I've only watched part of. Most of them I'd watch the whole thing to make sure at least technically it looked right, or if I need to edit anything out. But there's a couple of them I'm like, I just don't want to listen to me.
Sometimes it's just too much. It's just too much you know?
It is, and sometimes I could be just getting in my own head about it, and maybe it's fine or whatever. But I'm like, I just can't, because that's right. Because there's a guy who I met who's drives tour buses for bands, and he's like, Mark, I love that interview that you did with so and so, and I'm like, that's one that I've not seen the whole thing of. And he was like, what are you talking about? He said, that's so good. I'm like, I can't bring myself to watch that whole thing. And he just thought that was weird. I tried to explain to him that was the very first in-person video interview I had ever done. And so I thought, God, I was terrible, and I rambled too much. I didn't ask the good questions, and he said, no, but look how many views it has. I said, yeah, but it's also been on there for 7 years or whatever. But no, that would be fun, because I had a chance to go to the Seattle International Film Festival in person back in March or April, which was my first in-person film festival ever, because I wasn't doing this stuff before the pandemic. It was all new to me. Yeah, so I said, well, I got to try to get there for opening night and see the opening night movie and all the other stuff that they do in the red carpet. And yeah, it was really cool to just kind of be around other people, or either fans or in the industry. And then seeing the film that they were going to show for opening night, which happened to be a really great documentary. And unfortunately, then I had to eventually go virtual, because then I got COVID. So I don't know if I can't say I got it from that festival opening, but at some point I got it from somewhere. So, but at least I got out there for that, and the rest of it was virtual. And I'll be back in person again at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just how it's going to be, I guess, now. It's like...
Yeah, and for me, being here in Seattle, I'm still lucky that some festivals are still having a virtual component. So it's great. So like Tribeca, I was covering that again, and I don't have a means to get to New York and do all that kind of thing and leave my day job. But at least I can still partake virtually, so that's something.
Yeah, and I believe Whistler has a virtual component. I think you can watch Exile after the 5th. I think after December 5th.
Okay, yeah, and you're right. They do have a virtual component that's going to go well beyond the in-person part. When that finishes, you can still have access online, which is smart. I think a lot of the film festivals start realizing that we can reach a whole other market if we keep this going and get some more money and more exposure for the films and distribution, possibly.
I mean, I love it. Like, as someone who does smaller movies, like, they have a great run at festivals, but what I'd love is just for more people to see them.
Yeah, there was, I can't remember which festival it was, but there was one of them where I always look at my due date. So I thought I had to be done by a certain date. I wouldn't have access. And turns out, no, I went for like another 10 days past that virtually. So I'm like, oh, cool. I can still watch some more things. And so I was very happy about that. And as we still have a little bit of time, I hope it's okay to ask you about a different film that I also watched of yours just last night, which was Rescued by Ruby.
Oh.
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix last night. So anyone out there, after you're done watching this this live stream, you can go check it out if you have Netflix as well. And especially if you're a dog lover.
The dog is incredible. It's a very sweet movie about a very sweet dog. And the dog they got, there was 2 dogs, but the main dog was incredible. An actual rescue dog, just trained for the movie.
Oh, wow. And if I remember right, you have cats, not dogs yourself?
I have cats, yeah. They're in
here. How did you like working with the dogs, since there were 2 of them?
I loved it so much. I have cats. I love dogs also. And so I shot the first week, and that was sort of all bonding with the dog. Bear was his name. And then someone's coming in. Forgive me for they said they'd be quiet. And then I was out for a couple weeks, and then I came back, and I was to play a part where we hadn't seen each other in a while. So I didn't say hello to the dog. And then I only said hello on camera. And then when I did, the dog went crazy, and he jumped all over me, and it was so sweet. It was like, oh, you remember me and you love me. It was just wonderful.
Well, that's awesome, and I think it's based on a true story for folks out there that haven't seen it, and it's also a really good message about adopting and going to rescues and going to shelters. If it's something you can think of before trying to buy that expensive purebred puppy from has papers and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also what they go through to be trained to become rescue animals.
Yeah, it's a very sweet movie. Very good family movie. People love it. Yeah, directed by Kat Shea, and yeah, it was fun to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I was. My mom and dad have a dog, and so after I saw that today, I texted the picture of the poster art to my mom. So, oh, you should watch this on Netflix. I think you'll dig it. And Camille's in it, and she said, I already watched it.
That's cool. It was huge. It did so well when it came out. It was like #3 on Netflix in the world for a while. It's crazy.
And that's the thing is that I think sometimes, depending on what you've been looking at, I know for me, I see so many movies that I review all the time that sometimes you're trying to find something that is like in this case, it's very much a family movie. It's something that you can maybe learn from, feel good about, but also kind of get invested in. And because there's just so much content out there that sometimes when you find that one, it's like, oh, this is really good. And just like what I did, I started texting other people about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. And then you get to share it, like talk about it. And what did you think of that? And what do you think of that? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. And there was also, there is another film of yours. Gosh, so this goes back a ways. Harlan Manor, because that was one that you had told me about.
Yeah. That was another fun horror we shot in Manitoba. Stephen, blanking on his last name right now. That's terrible. The director. He's very nice. It's the second time I've worked with him, and I apologize so much. It's my brain. Monroe. My brain still works a little bit, and it was really fun. It was super fun to shoot. It was like a great time horror. It's a blast, and it's on Tubi. And if you haven't seen it and you're looking for a fun horror, it's super fun.
Yeah, because when I watched it October of last year on Tubi, it's got that whole kind of paranormal activity aspect to it at the beginning, and I haven't seen all those films, but it's definitely creepy.
Yeah. It was creepy. We filmed in like a place. It was like a half old mansion and half old school. It used to be a school for children, and it was creepy. Like I was sitting in my dressing room, and I had my spirit box on, which is like one of my props that's supposed to detect like spiritual activity. And the light went off, and it started blinking, and then my bathroom door opened. It was probably the wind, but I was pretty freaked out.
I would be very freaked out if something like that happened, especially since you're making this movie about certain things, and to have something like that happen while you're, in your dressing room. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was pretty weird. Also, because we were all like mostly nights, and it was pretty freaky.
Wow. Well, yeah, and maybe that's what also added to the atmosphere of that film. Just that location itself already had this natural creepiness to it.
I think so. It did. It was a great, super cool location.
Yeah, because I'm trying to remember that it definitely. There's another film that kind of reminded me of that had maybe a former like asylum kind of location that was actually a real place that they used. So it's kind of it just adds that extra layer of ugh.
Yeah, you don't have to try too hard to feel like in the middle of the night walking around there. It's scary.
Yeah, it's like, well, I know I'm hired as an actor, but I'm not acting right now because this is really creeping me out. That's cool. Yeah. So, and I think that's right, because we first talked about the Blu-ray release of Hunter x Hunter. That's what brought us together a little over a year ago. And so, is there anything else that you've done so far that's going to be coming out on a physical format that you know of?
Not that I know of yet. It's possible something will, but I've got 3 movies coming. I've got Exile's coming out, and then I have one called The Island Between Tides coming out, and I have one called Shelby Oaks coming out, and they're all going to do the festival rounds, and then I'm not sure where they land after that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's just been interesting having these conversations with some of the other film folks that they themselves are starting to get back into. I guess it probably depends on someone's age, but they're getting back into collecting physical media again themselves.
Yeah, I can
It's,
see that. It's nice to have it. I kind of miss it. It kind of feels like you own, like you don't have nothing. You know what I mean? Without the little box there.
yeah, exactly, and that's what they were kind of talking about. I had a musician on recently, and she's like, "Oh, Mark, I pressed up CDs just so that I could physically have one myself and just kind of hold it."
Yeah.
And because she was talking about her Spotify streams and everything else, and I was like, I'm a freaking dinosaur. I mean, I know what Spotify is, but I don't have playlists. I don't have any of that kind of thing. And she says, so I have a CD player, and she said, "Oh, I'll send you one," because I didn't even know she had pressed some up.
Oh, that's cool.
But yeah, it seems like there's more and more people that are like, yeah, they want something tangible. And again, if it's their own little collection of things, maybe in things that they've been in, so they can just have it on a shelf somewhere. They may not look at it, but
yeah, it's there. You know, it exists there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of cool that way. And so, like when you mentioned that, so Exile is going to be again, the film festival starts on the 30th of November, which is not far away. And as you're going to be there at the Whistler Film Festival, and again, folks, you can go to their website. I think I put it in the YouTube description. If not, I definitely will update that. So you can either go, if you're in BC or in the area, you can go to the festival yourself, or you can watch things virtually, and they'll have a timeline of when things will be available virtually. The other two films that you mentioned that are coming out, what type of films are those? What genre?
The Island Between Tides I would describe as a supernatural thriller. With Donna Logue is in it, and Paloma Piakowski, and it's sort of it's loosely based on the old J.M. Barrie play. Boy, I hadn't planned to talk about this, so I don't totally remember the name of it. But there's an old J.M. Barrie play that sort of centers around a ghost, and it's very, very loosely based on that. And it's a very beautiful, very sort of, the way I haven't seen it, the way I imagine it, very ethereal, very beautiful, but also tense and dark supernatural thriller. And then the other one is Shelby Oaks, directed by Chris Stuckman. It's his first feature, and it's ended up getting a great cast, and it's a horror. I would describe it as a pretty frightening horror.
Okay, cool. So, like you talked about last year, that your hands are in many different types of films, different projects, and that's something that you love. You want the variety.
I do, yeah, and I got to do last year too. I did a recurring role in a series called Shoresy for Hulu in the States and Crave in Canada, and it's a comedy about hockey, and that's really different than the things that I usually do, and it was so much fun. It's a hilarious show, and I encourage people to seek it out.
Okay, I'll write that down. It's Hulu in the States. And I see. When I think about comedy, I know that you can do it because now I'm forgetting. I'm blanking on the other film that you were
Kingsway.
in. Yeah, Kingsway. That you have that one scene in the bar when that guy's like, "Is anyone sitting here?" It's like, "Not you."
I got the director, writer of Kingsway, Bruce Sweeney. He's just written another one, and hopefully we're going to film that in the new year, maybe February-ish, hopefully.
Okay, cool. Yeah. No, it's great that you again that you're getting opportunities to do so many different things, and you can kind of delve into it, whether it's new or something that you've done in the past, but it's like a different type of horror, a different type of thriller, or drama, or comedy. Being Eclectic Arts, I mean, for me, it's definitely a variety is that spice of life, and as much as I might like one thing, I don't want to just be stuck and being known as, well, you're the music guy, or you're the heavy metal guy, or you're the opera guy, I don't want that. I want a bunch of different things.
Yeah, of course. It's just more fun.
For sure. Well, Camille, thank you so much for taking the time tonight. And everyone, again, Exile is the film that's going to have its world premiere at the Whistler Film Festival, which starts on November 30th. And so, and as Camille just mentioned, she's got two other films that will be coming out fairly soon. And you can already watch Rescued by Ruby on Netflix if you haven't watched it already, like you're a ding-dong like me who didn't know about it until yesterday. And definitely check out Harlan Manor on Tubi. And then if you haven't seen Hunter x Hunter, absolutely see that film as well. This lovely lady has been in so many wonderful projects over the years that you could probably do a deep dive and keep on watching stuff, which is really awesome. So Camille, again, I thank you so much for the time, and I wish you all the success with all the projects. And hopefully we get a chance to talk soon about either one of the other films is getting ready to actually come out or something else.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I love talking with you. So I'm always in your corner, ready to help promote whatever you have coming out.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, have a great. I was almost going to say have a happy Thanksgiving, but you're Canadian. You already had yours last month.
Yeah, it was over ages ago.
Yeah. For those in the U.S., have a happy Thanksgiving on Thursday. And again, my next live stream is a week from today on Monday the 28th. Have a good night up there, Camille, and stay safe.
Bye. You
All right.
too.
Bye. Thank you.